Hey everyone, welcome back to Low Luxury, where we are talking about the designer Hedi Slimane, the renegade fashion designer. And I don't know why people love to call him a renegade. He's actually very, very commercial, much more so than pretty much anyone else, but we will get into that. Hedi, of course, is now at Celine. He's been quite successful there, at least commercially. And before that, of course, Saint Laurent, Dior, designers like that. And he played a massive part in some very big fashion movements, so I'm really excited to talk about him. Now, I do takedown videos of like bad or misbehaving fashion designers pretty often, but you might be surprised to learn that this isn't one of those videos. Maybe I'll do one in the future because for sure Hedi has done just as much whack stuff as pretty much anyone else in the fashion industry, but today what I want to do is actually defend our boy Hedi. There are a few common attacks that people like to throw his way. They like to say that he's unoriginal, that he's stuck in his ways, that he has a lack of respect for the houses that he works at, that he's a serial killer, and only one of those I made up. Some of these are fair and others aren't, but even the ones that are can actually be looked at from another angle and turned into positives. So Hedi came up at Dior during the heyday of like the 2000s rock revival, you know, like Franz Ferdinand, the White Stripes, bands like that, and he actually dressed a bunch of them. So he was very intimately connected with like the skinny tie fashion look of that era. In retrospect, of course, those looks are super, super dated and kind of cringy, but actually at the time that he was doing them, they were really original and kind of groundbreaking. Some designers are years ahead of the curve. Like, look at somebody like Marine Sayer. Maybe in 10 years, everyone will be dressing like that, but for now, it is only her customers. But Hedi is also, despite what his detractors say, always ahead of the curve as well. But for him, it's generally by months rather than years. His designs are always where the zeitgeist is about to be, and that makes him super successful, and it makes his pieces sell. People love to question how Slimane keeps getting hired, and it's because he makes his employers buckets and buckets of money. You may not like his clothes, but if you sell, you will always, always have a job in the fashion industry. And there's another aspect to it as well. I'd be willing to bet that the percentage of pieces he makes that sell versus don't is way, way higher than most other designers. And that's because he really doesn't bother himself with like the artsy-fartsy bullshit. I mean, I'm sure he does consider himself an artist, but he doesn't do that like self-congratulatory stuff that pretty much every other big brand name designer does. Let's look at it this way. I love Alessandro Michele at Gucci for his crazy, like, thrifty grandpa designs. If you were to ask me on the street what I like about Gucci, I'd probably talk about that. But when it came time for me to actually open up my wallet and buy something from them, I ended up getting this fairly commercial, ready-to-wear rugby shirt. And that's because the things that we admire in brands aren't always the same things that we actually buy from brands. It's amazing to look at these like awesome editorials in magazines and websites, but when it's your body and your money, you have to actually consider what it will look like on you and when you'll actually wear it. Hedi Slimane only makes the pieces that you will actually wear, and that's what makes him so successful. Oh, and by the way, that like skinny tie look that he is so linked to, he doesn't even make stuff that looks like that anymore. Sure, he still has a clear like rock and roll aesthetic, but the fits are decidedly no longer skinny. Actually, a lot of them are pretty oversized, and instead of like rock and roll revival looks, it's kind of more gothic now. Okay, so we've established why people wear his stuff, but that doesn't make it original, right? I mean, people definitely like to make that case against him. Well, this is where it gets a little tricky. Whether you think something is a good design or not is totally subjective. So here I can only speak for myself and my personal philosophy on what makes something good fashion. And here's a little secret. I think that making good original clothes is actually a lot easier than people make it out to be. I think that in order to successfully make something a fashion piece, at least in the way that, you know, the H&Ms of the world don't, is to change one thing. That's it, a single thing. So just start by designing a great piece of clothing. You know, just a simple jacket, t-shirt, pair of pants, whatever. Make it well and out of high quality materials. That part I think should go without saying. And then take one element of that piece and tweak it in an unexpected way. To me, that's fashion. You're taking the recognizable and making it something original and making people look at it from a new angle. In many ways, this is similar to Virgil Abloh's famous 3% rule, where he says that all you have to do to make a piece original is change it 3% from the original. While many people point to this as evidence of his unoriginality, I do think he's actually onto something there. And let it be known that I don't only think you're a good designer if you work this way. Dimna Vasalia at Balenciaga is an amazing designer who I love so much, and he does way more than single tweaks to his pieces. His pieces have tons of crazy elements to them. The same goes for people like J.W. Anderson and Martine Rose, all amazing designers, but just for very different reasons than Hedi Slimane. The reason I think that this is what makes something fashion is because it's what the fast fashion retailers don't do. Every unique tweak that you make to a piece, that's crazy how much it rhymed. Every one of those tweaks is a potential opportunity to turn a customer off. And H&M is never going to want to do that. They're just going to make them really simple and straightforward because that's what's most likely to sell. Let me show you a couple examples of what I mean. So here is an ambush hoodie, and I would say maybe their most successful design ever and most recognizable. And it's a completely straightforward hoodie, like everything about it totally normal, very comfortable, well made and everything, sure, but they've made one tweak. They've added these insane multicolored woven drawstrings that give it a completely different look and feel than anyone else out there. And that alone makes it an extremely successful piece in my eyes. Or you can take a look at this Maison Margiela sweatshirt. You know, you just take a simple cream sweatshirt and suddenly you add these lines on here in the atelier print, and suddenly you have an amazing example of deconstruction where you're turning the actual piece into the mannequin that the atelier would use to make it. It's so perfect. The only way to really demonstrate this point as it relates to Hedi Slimane's work at Celine is to take a look at it. So let's check out the new Celine collection, and hopefully you will see what I'm talking about. So this video is called Teen Knight Poem, and it is a bunch of knights who are also Timothy Chalamet, essentially. And actually it works really well at making the clothes look even more hip than they are already. So kind of really smart marketing from Hedi right off the bat. And even the first thing we get here is a very non-Slimane kind of signature piece. This is a knit, an oversized knit at that. Remember how I said he was changing up his fits? So an oversized knit with this really interesting kind of looping pattern around the neck and chest. I'd say it's actually more Raf Simons than it is Hedi Slimane, but people would never admit that because the cool kids really love Raf Simons, but not so much Hedi Slimane, even though this could fit right in on a Raf show. You've also got this absolutely insane visor piece, which maybe he's trying to do like the face mask thing with COVID, but it doesn't cover the mouth at all, so it's completely not useful in that sense. But it's also really cool, like weird headpieces like the Givenchy horns that Matthew M. Williams did in his first collection. Not good at all, and people have been trying it and failing. This is some of the best weird headwear I've seen actually in a fashion collection in quite some time. And you've got another headpiece on this next look, and here we start to see that he's very into layering. Like that is really how he's building these looks, and it may be one of the reasons why he's going so oversized with things, because he's got to fit them on top of each other. But anyway, the main piece here, the outer piece, is this leather vest, and it is brown leather, which I think of as kind of an old vintage, not very cool color for a leather piece, but he's actually making it look really good here. And that one tweak that he's made is he's added these studs and zippers. They create a really cool line, and they also make it kind of convertible in a way, because you could kind of let it slouch off your shoulders, or you can zip them and bring them more up onto the shoulders. So it's actually a really cool element and a unique design twist. And here's maybe the best example we've got so far of that single tweak. So you've got a coat, a simple striped coat. It looks very nice, it looks thick, it looks like it has a texture to it, but that tweak that's been made is this insane fur applique around this one arm. It just loops around it almost. I had to do a double take. I watched it a few times because at first I thought that must be the strap for a bag. but it's not. It's just this added loop of fur that goes right around the shoulder and under the armpit. And it's so odd, but really cool. Like, I'm actually very into it. And you've also got this added element of chokers, and another motif that he's playing with a lot this collection is he's playing a lot with collars. He's not doing too many traditional collars, especially on undershirts and things like that. Like, if you take a look at this, normally, you'd have a collar, it would be flip over, flip down to some points right here. But this one, it just stays right up. It goes up like a sort of mock neck or turtleneck, and it ruffles out. It's very feminine. I'd say it's very modern, forward-thinking, interesting. Not a lot of other designers are doing necklines like this, so I actually really appreciate it. Once again, on this piece, we can see he is very into the vests this season. This one is a big leather vest here with this denim coat under it. And this one, the tweak that he's made is really in the look as a whole, because you've got a fairly traditional layered piece here. You've got a Sherpa jacket, again, very commercial, very sellable, I'm sure. But then you have these absolutely insane, gaudy, flamboyant kind of sequined pants that are, again, very billowy. They really flow, but they really throw the look off in an odd way that I was not expecting. When it opened up and showed those pants, it was just like, whoa. So again, single tweak makes it work. So this next one is actually, I think, a really great example of how Hedi Slimane is not given his due as a designer, because I think that this overcoat, if it was done by anyone else, this beautiful tuxedo coat, if it was done by any other big designer, it would be lauded as a great piece. But just because it's Hedi Slimane, it's gonna get kind of tossed aside and ignored a little bit, except by the customers who will probably buy it in droves. So this one, the tweak that I'm talking about, it's those shoulders. These are really exaggerated, super broad shoulders, and they give it an awesome look. It's just such a clean piece that really deserves more love and respect than it's likely gonna get. There's really two elements of this look that I want to talk about here. And first of all, we have to talk about those boots, because again, there aren't that many people doing this. It's a very feminine look, these large furry boots. I think maybe Rick Owens is the only other person I can think of doing footwear for men that is in this style, this size, this silhouette. But he's doing it here and it's working really well. It looks so good with this look, and it's really over the top and ostentatious and cool. But speaking of the clothes rather than just the footwear, I also want to call your attention to this knit underneath this V-neck sweater and just the cut of that. It's another vest. He's loving his vest right now. But also that length right there, it's almost at a dress length, and you're adding that little bit of femininity in there that again is giving it that interesting tweak, an interesting single design element that makes it stand apart from a normal V-neck sweater vest. So this one, again, we're really looking at the main piece being an oversized knit here, but the unique element that's added is this design that's entirely created out of these crystals, sequins, whatever they are. And it's actually a really striking design, and this one caught my eye immediately. Another interesting element of this piece is the placement of the bag. So you've got this kind of crossbody, bum bag, whatever, but you've put the main part of it, it looks like the logo part and things, up on the shoulder. So it almost reminds me of these old like laptop bags that people would wear where it'd be so big and bulky and heavy that they need that kind of padded strap up at the shoulder so it didn't just kill you essentially. And I think that's a really cool tweak on it and a really cool way to wear it, and I'm interested in seeing more of that going forward. This next piece, I think it's pretty obvious to you what that new unique element is, and that is those fur panels, the zebra stripe pattern panels. And again, bringing in patterns, which I really appreciate. I actually really like Hedi Slimane's eye for patterns. I think they're really striking. He likes kind of out there stuff that most people would think are ugly, but then he makes them look really cool, and somehow, I don't know how he does it. But what's so cool about this is that you've got this denim jacket, and normally when you've got cutout panels like that, in a normal high-end piece, those would almost certainly be leather. Like, that is the expected move here. But instead, putting in this extremely loud pattern is really cool and unexpected. In this next one, they gave it barely any screen time at all. They basically just flash it on screen, but I really wanted to call it out because I think this is one of the coolest, most modern and hip versions of a bomber jacket I've seen in a long, long time. That oversized fit, the bulkiness, the kind of roundness of it is perfection, and I just wanted to call that out and show that here and show it some respect, even though it's a fairly simple, otherwise black bomber jacket. This next piece was just super unexpected to me, and I wanted to call that out too, because it's another way that Hedi Slimane is really stepping out and not just doing the same thing over and over as a lot of people accuse him of, because this is not something that's totally up his alley. This kind of coat with this Sherpa fur, and then you've got these nice little patterns embroidered into there. It's very, very unexpected and almost doesn't fit, but I'm glad he threw it in because I love to see him doing different things and things that might kind of get people to look at him differently, which this most certainly does. This jacket is an extremely clear example of that single tweak because it's so singular and so specific. So right here, you've got a leather biker jacket, and on these biker jackets, you usually have these kind of rounded panels going over the shoulders, and in this case he has done those out of denim, which is something I personally haven't seen before. It's so simple, it's so obvious, and yet it's new, original, and unique. I think I'd have to say that this is my favorite look of the entire collection. So again, bringing back that fur shoulder kind of motif here, but it's such a cool, preppy look. The color combinations, that red with black of that jacket is so amazing. And also, again, I really, really want to commend him for playing with that collar, because here he has completely removed it. The jacket just ends. There is zero collar whatsoever. It's just rounded around, and it's just the collar of the shirt that shows through. It's not covered up by anything. It's so interesting. Again, very women's wear, but bringing that into the menswear collection, making it more kind of unisex, gender neutral in a way, which again is very much with the times and likely to go along moving forward in time. I just think it's a great decision from him here. And finally, we had to end on this look. So since his days at Saint Laurent, he has been famous for doing these teddy jackets, like they're maybe his most coveted pieces. He's brought them over to Celine, he's done them there too. They cost thousands of dollars, they're absolutely insane, they're really, really well done, they're really clean, they make you look great. But here he has done his own version of it and updated it for this collection with the themes, fits, fabrications of this collection, and he's done it super oversized. So usually these pieces from him are very tailored and very kind of trim and proper, but this one, he just lets loose and again gives it that rounded silhouette that we saw on that bomber jacket. And I think it's just such a great move, showing that, hey, I'm still Hedi Slimane, but I'm also able to move forward and do what I do within a modern context and a forward-thinking context as well. So I think it's just such a great look for us to end on here. So guys, I hope I've shown you that Hedi Slimane is more than he's cracked up to be. In the popular culture, the cool kids of fashion, they really think it's fun to hate on him. And listen, there are reasons to hate on him. I mentioned earlier that one reason people criticize him is because he doesn't really respect the house codes when he gets to a new house. He just kind of transforms every house into his own image and his own vision. Like his Celine is so crazy, insanely different from Phoebe Philo's, and I really have no argument against that. It's just kind of the truth. It's a fact that you either have to accept or not accept. I accept it. I want designers to do what they want to do and not feel constricted by the confines of where they are, even if they should show some respect to it every now and then, which he doesn't necessarily. But that's okay. I think he's doing really great pieces, as we just saw, and I think he deserves more respect than he's getting. So with that, I'd ask you to take a look at the other video on screen here, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time.